So today we're going to talk about the ferment of freedom. We've talked about how thoughts emanate from self, and that thoughts are expressed in words, and that the freedom of speech is the essence of the communication of self. But I think there's more further up the chain, further up the pyramid, and that is the love of freedom, but not in an academic sense, in a very real, tangible in its expression, but intangible in its growth and propagation. And I liken it to a culture, like a food culture. The culture for beer, culture for bread, culture for cheese. That you have to have an X factor when you're dealing with things that are so powerful and can animate someone so much. Because you can go to school and learn about a free people. You can learn about systems of oppression. You can experience them in your own life and in common life here in the States. And you can say, oh, okay, I don't like that because, it makes me feel bad or impoverishes me, like communism. But how do you inculcate the ferment of freedom so that in your heart there actually burns and multiplies the culture of freedom? Because at some point, attempting to identify what is free and what is oppression will fail. Otherwise, it'd be really easy. And my opinion is that those who drafted the original documents, the founding documents, they had a love and understanding of freedom that surpassed the words that were written down. So that if you understand this, then you begin to understand the specialness that when your political science or economics professor or whomever starts talking about systems, ideological systems, etc., you're going to have an understanding of why it bothers you or why you feel emboldened or encouraged by these things. And I submit that a truer heart of freedom, fed by the ferment, is a far more accurate instrument for power of self, and as an identifier, like an acid test, that if you truly have freedom in your heart and you encounter something in your life or other lives, and it causes your spirit to be troubled, well, there's probably a dang good reason. And I'm not saying you should have a knee-jerk reaction, but listen to your freedom's heart. I'm not saying act purely on emotion, but if that ferment is true within you, then it's telling you something. Learn what it's saying, give it words, funnel it through yourself, your beliefs, which you have worked on, believe in, and can act upon. Now, like a culture, like the beer maker, the bread maker, cheese maker, you can buy culture. You can buy bread, yeast. It works. You can buy sourdough starter. That works. But learning what is the unique ferment and culture for you, I propose is going to be the best for you and those you love. And this goes back to the sense of self. So what I'm saying is that in the mysterious parts of your yourself, your power centers, start thinking, feeling, identifying that which is oppression-based and that which is freedom-based. Identify the seeds of the culture, the bacteria, its source. How can you cultivate that bacteria yourself? You know, I'm not saying get too mystical about it, but I believe it's true and accurate, isn't it? Everyone wants a good loaf of bread, an original beer, a great cheese, and that ferment is what makes it truly valuable. And in the beginning, there's going to be failures. Just like when you learn to make bread. It's going to be doughy, chunky, not tasty, but it's real. And that is the beginning of the love of freedom. So that when someone comes along and says X, Y, and Z, not only do you have your sense of self, which is I propose an emotional, intellectual construct, but the mystery of the ferment, which you have cultured and you are sure of, and brings a warm glow, just like a bread yeast. It makes temperature, thermogenic. It does something special. And I wish people in my life when I was young had spoken of freedom this way without being, you know, like weirdly ideological. Because now that we have access to each other's minds, and I know I've spoken about this previously, we also have access to one another. The end result of all of our cultures, and someone can most certainly culture oppression in their heart. And I'm not sure how to identify that yet. I mean, you can, you know, I think that someone who seeks freedom has ways, but sometimes it just comes down to a feeling. And I think I've said this before, that the reason you feel it is because you grow it in your heart. And your heart is saying, whoa, 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 dude, there's something here. And your mind is like, we've trained ourselves for this moment. We know what we're dealing with. We may not have all the answers, but we know we trod, or we walk a different path, and for different reasons. Even though in the beginning, the path of oppression looks very much like the path of freedom, and that's its primary deception. So that when you have ferment of freedom in your heart, not only are you creating a culture of power and self and uniqueness, but you're helping liberate the world one thought, one how would you say, heart loaf of bread at a time. And I think this is very accurate and true, and important, and unique. Because, well, again, going back to, there's so much now in the universe, the information universe, that you know, it's hard to pick out. It's hard to pick out. Oh, and that's one of the reasons I love nature. I keep going back to this, is that this is my truer ferment, and that while I can wax whimsical, poetic, and nostalgic, or whatever, being in the woods, there is certainly an X factor. I mean, look. And while winter is here and there's a little bit of snow on the ground, this is like the palate cleanse you can't buy. You know, there are no thought leaders and influencers out here other than me. So I want to sum it up, but I think I have summed it up. That above self is the ferment of freedom, or part of self, however you choose to say that. So I hope you found this helpful, and be encouraged, and be cultural. Take care.